The serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field. Beware of subtlety. Beware of cleverness in your ministry as pastors or evangelists. Beware of psyching somebody up into something. He wasn't truthful. He wasn't godly. It had nothing to do with the power of the Holy Spirit bringing conviction, but it was subtle. It was clever. It was persuasive, but the wrong kind of persuasion. And beware that we don't persuade people with the wisdom of men. But as Paul said, my speech and my preaching was not with enticing words of man's wisdom, but in demonstration of the Spirit and power. He was more subtle than any beast of the field, and he said to the woman, hath God said? Did God really say that? That, of course, as you know, is the way every cult begins. Oh, you think God said that? Well, now, wait a minute. Joseph Smith got a revelation, and there's not a Christian on the face of the earth, but he's been ordained of God to begin true Christianity. Or Herbert W. Armstrong said the gospel wasn't preached, the true gospel wasn't preached on this earth for 18 and a half centuries until I began my radio ministry in 1934. Or Mary Baker Eddy wrote Science and Health with key to the Scriptures, and nobody understood the Scriptures until she gave us the key. And to this day, every Christian Science church around the world takes its sermons from the mother church in Boston because Mary Baker Eddy had the revelation. There is a kind of guruism in the Church of Jesus Christ, unfortunately. And we can see it in them, but we don't see it in ourselves. That's one of the reasons, believe it or not, when we wrote this book, we were not going to use names. One reason was we did not want to give people a billy club to pound ministries and individuals over the head with. Because you point out something that may not be biblical in their ministry doesn't mean that everything else in their ministry is wrong. But one of the major reasons we didn't want to use names is because if you do use names, there are a lot of people who have elevated these individuals up to onto a pedestal of infallibility, and as soon as you name their Christian guru, they won't hear another word you say. We gave one quote of James Dobson. We didn't even put his name in the body of the book. You got to look in the footnotes to find out who it was that we're quoting. And you ought to hear the screams. How dare you question the national champion of Christian values, the foremost expert on the Christian family in the whole world? Well, my response is, I'm sure that James Dobson would be very upset if he knew that there were people out there who apparently think he's infallible. We better question one another. And that's one of the problems. We've got a lot of personalities, many of them on television, and we don't question them. And there are millions of Christians out there who just accept what these people say. And they can lead you down the path to destruction unless you are like the Bereans. Check out what Dave Hunt says. Check out what Chuck Smith says. Check out what anybody says. The Bereans didn't accept what the great Apostle Paul said just because of who he was. But they searched the Scriptures daily to see whether these things were so. Daily they searched the Scriptures to see whether these things were so. And they are commended by the Holy Spirit for having done so. And 1 Corinthians 14:29 says, let the prophets speak and let the others judge. People say, judge not lest you be judged. Well, Jesus is saying, don't judge hearts. And some of you, as some of us, include myself, as husbands and wives, we judge our mates that way. Oh, I know what you're thinking. I can tell by that look on your face, tone of your voice or whatever. And we're judging hearts. We are not to judge hearts, but we must judge lives. We must judge doctrine. And we're commanded to do so. And that's one of the problems with Christian television. You can't judge. Somebody has a word of knowledge. Something's happening out there. You got no way. I believe that the gifts of the Spirit should function within the body of believers. And you got no way to check up on this, and you got no way to judge what's going on. And it has gotten out of hand.